Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome back, and thank you for joining us at the Fifth Avenue Synagogue Sunday night speakers program. Tonight, we have the opportunity to hear from comedian and actor Elon Gold. Elon, of course, is no stranger to Fifth Avenue Synagogue, as he performed stand-up at our new members dinner just a few years back. And Elon is a multi-talented individual with many achievements. He's appeared on Hulu programming, Netflix programming, HBO, and most recently on Curb Your Enthusiasm. And despite his many accomplishments, he is probably best known for being the son of Lynn and Sid Gold, probably two of the most popular people I have ever met. Everyone knows and loves Lynn and Sid Gold. They attend Shabbos services every week. We just saw them yesterday. They join all the classes, more or less. If you could probably give you both a smicha by now with all the classes that you would join. And they always join and attend with a smile and a happy disposition. And to speak from the heart, as I know the family for many years, one of the things that I admired most about the Gold family is that they are a true family. And it is really clear, quite evident, how much they care for one another, how much they love one another, and how much they support one another, and really serve as a model for all of us as what a family unit could look like. And we only wish them happy occasions, strength during challenging times, and please God, may they celebrate the many joyous occasions in good health for years to come.
Amen.
Thank you.
Sid and Lynn, the floor is yours.
Wow, this is a mutual admiration society because I was going to thank you, Jacob, and everyone, and of course the rabbi and Sheila. I could go on thanking everyone. What a great year it has been, 2021. Not considering it, as a matter of fact, in spite of the challenges that we had, but you made it going strong with services, of course, the prayer services and the wonderful Baal Tefillah and Baal Koreh, and it was so normal that I didn't even feel that it was a pandemic and you're under construction. So I want to just express my hakaras tov to all of you, really, for carrying on, because it was so supportive to me and everyone, even those in Florida, this feeling of belonging and connectedness that we always had. I get phone calls now from people in Florida. It's sort of envy them.
Let's face it, we have a great team.
Right, you're a great team.
Thank you.
And, they have the warmth of the Floridian, balmy, sunny weather, but we have the warmth of the shul and this loving community, including the hot kiddishes that we have every week. That they don't have. The children is always the meatball, everything is just perfect. So I'm really grateful to all of you. And as you reminded, this is the start of a new year. It'll even be better in 2022.
Amen.
I'll drink to that.
And yes, I hope everybody has their cocktail, or Elon usually has a cigar, so everybody relax, you're in for a treat. I know I'm being a little biased, he's going to be very, very entertaining. I was going to do a shout out to the rabbi and his brilliant those handouts that he does, and like this week he just did a handout on family and having the children join in, engage the children in Jewish life. And this relates to Elon, how he engages his children. So every time I go to a shir, I chef nachis, from Elon. From the rabbi, talking, and it's so relatable. Um, and like you, which I just learned, that you have to give 50% of your time, your energy to Jewish, to tzedakah. I always thought it was Masa. I thought it was 10%, but you, Jacob, I think you give 85% of your time to the shul, and Elon does. I don't know if people know about it, but Elon, are you still the vice president of your shul in LA?
I think they kicked me out.
I don't believe that.
Oh, he used to be, but anyway, I know he used to go every morning and call all these people 6 o'clock in the morning
To make sure there's a minion.
to make sure there's a minion. And
Is
he
this
does
part of my
a lot
intro?
what did he say?
This is part of my intro? Vice president of the shul?
Our show will be over, but we'll still be doing the intro.
No, okay. I'm going to brag about Elon with his religious life, his Kiddush Hashem, which other people have said that's how they describe. And just this Shabbos, there was a gentleman at the Kiddush describing you as being a genuine person. And why did he say you're so genuine? Because when he came up to you after the show, he said, "Oh, you're hilarious. You're a comic genius." So he's telling me all this, but what impressed him the most is that you looked at him straight, took his hand, and said, "Thank you very much."
I wouldn't do that anymore. I'm not shaking anyone's hands ever again.
So these are the middos I wanted to brag about.
Yes, folks, he shakes hands. What a mensch.
Okay, you said it. You said the word, a mensch. And more than a mensch, we don't use that term anymore, which describes you. You have derech eretz. You have your priority. You're good to your family, of course, but you're also kind.
I hate them. What are you talking about?
To everybody else.
Especially my children. I can't stand them. I'm not talking to them right now. All of my, am I introed yet? Am I not on yet? Because I had an opening bit I was going to do, but we're still doing the intro?
Oh, okay.
No, go ahead. I want to hear all this. By the way, any of my good midot I got from both of you, and any of my bad midot I got from my older brother. Anyway.
Okay, so I was getting to that too, that sense of integrity and humility. You do have it. And your priority, family comes first. That you got all from your father. What you didn't get, still wondering how you got that comedic talent, and it must have skipped a generation.
Because I have no sense of humor.
We do not have your sense of humor. It's a gift. And speaking of gift, you always had, not only, of course, your comedy gift, but you had this gift of being connected to Hashem, of being close. Now, I remember you, I don't know if you still remember, holding, when your baby was a few months old, holding and davening at the same time, and the baby never cried.
I was just praying that the baby was mine.
This was not rehearsed. And well, I just told you about all your middos and things I remember, about how you were almost, I used to admire your conversation with Hashem. And of course, we were looking forward to your conversation with us all, J to J, Jew to Jew. But foremost, you always had a conversation with Hashem. That was a gift. I could never understand, but I to this day, I admire you for your connection, your closeness to Hashem. And when you daven with such kavana, and other people have noticed that too. It's so the opposite, being on stage and making people laugh, and then being, and people saw you in shul at Vacation Village and other places in shul. You're davening with such kavana. So you have a lot of midos to be admired. Now, I'll let Dad talk a little bit of how he got you started in the
At any point, are we letting Jacob Gold talk? Because I think he has questions.
Whenever he wants to talk, he could just
No, he
interrupt.
has questions. No, all right. So you say your piece. I'll let him say.
So actually, when Elon was younger, he always had this comic flair, and he always used to be very good at impressions. In fact, even when he was in high school, he would impersonate the teachers and keep the class in stitches while he would impersonate the teachers. So one of the things I did in terms of promoting Elon, the way we promote our clients to help them get seen by the right people, by casting directors, by agents.
You were just a client then.
So we would do this showcase and invite all the casting directors, producers, and agents to see everyone do two or 3 minutes on stage. So we had the showcase, and as a result of that showcase, Elon was chosen to do the MTV half-hour comedy hour. And that was the beginning. The rest is history. But actually,
How old were you, Elon, when this happened?
Am I on now? Am I full screen? I have a bit I have to do. Is this me? How come I'm not on speaker view? Am I on speaker?
Sid, are you good? We can hear you. Sid, you have more? You want to say more?
No.
Well, let Elon talk. I'll talk more.
Go. You're good, Elon. Go.
Okay. First of all, how's everybody doing? Can you see me on speaker? Why are we looking at you, Jacob? Am I on speaker view?
You're on. Everyone can see you, Elon.
Okay, good. First of all, even on Zooms, I'm extra careful. I feel like this Omicron can transmit right through the screen, and I'm very protective of my parents. I love them. So, all right, it was just an opening bit.
That was good. That was
Thank
good.
you. Even on Zoom, I wear the masks. First of all, Mom and Dad, what a fabulous intro, and I really do want to hear more. But it's an hour program, and Jacob actually wrote questions, and this is very sweet of you. I've never, usually when I'm introduced, I've done like all the late night shows, James Corden. I remember like Jay Leno would always do a nice intro, but he would never be like, "Oh, my next guest, he's got amazing midot." If you've seen him davening, my next guest is one of the best daveners. Folks, he really davens like nobody's business. But that's very nice to hear. Yes, I do. I love Hashem. I enjoy davening. I put on tefillin every day, even Shabbos. But no, it's very nice to hear my parents and just giving them nachas for me makes it all. We're all the rejection of show business, which people don't realize. It's just full of rejection. I mean, people see that, oh, we saw you on this show and we saw you on Curb. They don't see the daily rejection. So if I can enjoy, giving my parents nachas, and by the way, and I think I've explained this before, that I'm actually Jewish famous. I'm not worldwide famous. I'm Jewish famous. I'm famous in Jewish households, regular households. Every now and then, maybe someone knows me, but in Jewish, and the difference between Jewish famous and regular famous is Elon Musk was on the cover of Time. Elon Gold, cover of the Jewish Journal. Look at this. Look at this, folks. And that right there is nachas. You know what I mean? Elon Musk is Man of the Year. Elon Gold, Jew of the Week. Look at that. But I'll take that because you know what? It's all about giving the parents nachas. How's my hair, more importantly?
I like the handkerchief also. It's a good look.
By the way, it's only like 4 something here. You guys are drinking alcohol. I'm still up to iced coffee, but l'chaim, everybody.
L'chaim.
So all right, now let's let Mom and Dad, do you want to add anything else before we start this Q&A?
Yes.
Oh, good. But wait, there's more.
Right. No, it's the article.
Wait, should I tell
Yes.
them about Stacked, what happened with Stacked?
Yeah, after you got stacked. Okay.
Now,
tell 'em.
Stacked, as you know, was called Stacked not only because of Pamela Anderson, but because it took place in a bookstore.
Right.
Anyway, they were supposed to record Stacked on Friday night. And Elon asked the bigwigs, can we switch this to another night? And they said, well, it's Pamela Anderson's show. You have to ask her.
Yes.
So he went to ask Pamela Anderson, and she said, that's a great idea. Let's do it Thursday night. I'll have a longer weekend. So of course, obviously, because he was a Sabbath observer, he would not shoot on Friday night.
Correct.
And not only that, but when they did record it on Thursday night, Elon ordered kosher pizza for the audience.
I did. I got kosher pizza for the whole audience because there's like 200 people watching this sort of an arduous process. I mean, it's entertaining when the scenes are happening, but in between the scenes, there's rewriting. So the audience just sits there for like 4 hours. It could be like even sometimes it's 6 p.m. to even midnight, but it's generally like 3-4 hours. And it's a 22-minute sitcom. But because, you know, I'm talking the old days when they had studio audiences. I'm talking about when I was in I Love Lucy. But now, like Curb, there's no audience. They film it with a few cameras and it's on set and nobody's there watching. But my father's talking about Stacked, and there was 200 people there we did it Thursday nights. And I would buy kosher pizza because after like 3 hours, you know, as a fellow Jew, I understand we have to be fed every 2.5 hours. By the way, when my parents are here, and Mom and Dad, I decide you got to come out next month. I miss you too much. But when my parents are here, it's like having not goldfish, but I just know that every hour to 3 hours, I am feeding snacks. I'm like, are you hungry? And my dad is always hungry. Mom does it. She nibbles. Dad. So I'm in the kitchen most of the day preparing snacks for Dad because it's like a regular feeding over there. Anyway, Jacob, do you have any questions? People want to know about that. We have 100 people watching this.
So, first of all, Elon, thank you so much for your time, and thank you, Sid and Lynn, for your support and friendship to the show. So, Elon, your father started telling a little bit of it, but tell us when you first, thought that this was real, that you'd be a comedian.
Last Tuesday, I was like, I think. When I saw this, I went, "Oh my goodness, look at that! I made it." The truth is, I get the same. It's sort of like you're fooled as a comedian. Your very first time on stage, you think, "Oh my God, I'm a comedian now," and not only a comedian, but I'm a star because the first time you kill, and I was at the comic strip in New York City on 82nd and 2nd. And it was just open mic. And I actually followed this string of terrible comedians. No one did well. Everyone was bombing. And then this young guy who was a regular, he wasn't famous. He wasn't on Saturday Night Live. Nobody knew him, but he was a regular at the clubs. He was one of the pros. His name was Adam Sandler. And he came on, and he was the first guy to get laughs all night. And I was like, okay, maybe the audience is decent, but the comedians are all amateurs. And it was my first time. And at this pro, if he gets laughs, maybe I could get laughs. And I remember turning to my brother Steven, who was there, and I said, if I don't get laughs like all these other schmucks, I'm never doing this again. And because I got on stage and did impressions are, sort of an easy laugh because it's like a magic trick where the audience is so wooed and wow. They're like, ooh, how's he do it? And they're laughing and they're having fun. So I killed my first time. Most comedians don't kill. I killed my first time, and I remember coming off stage going, oh, I'm a rock star. Everybody loves me. I'm a real comedian. And then it's 20 years before you really are a real comedian. And I remember the first time I did that Tonight Show with Jay Leno, I remember I really rocked the house, and I went backstage and I just punched the cement wall. I just gave it a little tap, and I just went, wow, today I am a comedian. Like that was it. Like now I'm real. I just did the Tonight Show. You know what I mean? So that's years and years after. But I think that was the first time. And then when I taped my special about 5-6 years ago, after that 1 hour, I said to myself, okay, now I'm a great comedian. Because once you've done a 1 hour special and you rock it and it's on Netflix and now it's on Amazon Prime, then you're like, okay, you're one of the great comedians. The next goal is to go from a great comedian to be one of the greats. Whether I'll ever achieve that, we don't know. Probably not. But I'm definitely working towards that end, to be just one of the great comedians. You know, I never have to be the best, because I never will be. That was already like Richard Pryor and George Carlin and Jackie Mason. But I want to be among the greats, and I'm working towards that, and let's hope it happens.
So how old were you, out of curiosity, when you did that? Were you like in high school? Were you in college?
Yes, I actually was 16. And then all through college, I went to Queens College for a year, and then I went to Boston University. And all through my BU experience, I was running up and down the East Coast, Maine, New Hampshire, performing at other colleges and at little clubs and all that. By the way, can we just say, since Jackie Mason, who was one of my all-time heroes, and since everyone loves hearing my Jackie Mason, here's what people don't realize about comedians that do impressions. As much as you love hearing the impression, we love doing it. Like, I get such a kick out of doing Jackie Mason, because there's something about just embodying another person and getting into their head and doing the physicality. So we'll start with this. Are you ready? This is the first bit. This
Ready.
is Jackie Mason, the late, great legend Jackie Mason. If he was doing material right now during this pandemic about the whole rule about, remember the rule, do not touch your face. Are you ready? Are you ready for a bit?
Ready.
And by the way, this is just a Q&A. You know, I'm throwing this in at no extra charge. I'm not getting paid for this, folks. I don't know if you know this. This is what we call a mitzvah. This is what we call nachas. So any of these bits I'm throwing in, no extra charge. I'll be sending you a bill at the end of the for any. If I do like 3 or 4 bits, it'll be a certain amount. If I do, maybe buy 5 bits, get 1 free. All right, this is Jackie Mason talking about, to tell you the truth, it makes me nauseous to think that a person like me, such as myself, would ever even think about taking my hand and touching my face when I think about all the diseases, viruses, vitamin, bacteria, germs. This is a nauseating thing. When you think about all these things that are on your heads, I would never even think about touching my face. And I don't know if you heard about this, but as it turns out, your head is the most dangerous part of your body. That's right. There's no other part of your body that's more dangerous than your own head. I always thought it was the heart. I never heard of a head attack. But as it turns out, mister, you're paying attention. Your head is more dangerous than any other part of your body. Your head that's supposed to give you more pleasure than anything else on you. That's right. You ever get a mosquito bite? What were you thinking? You get a mosquito bite and you itch it and scratch it. It's the greatest sensation and pleasure that you'll ever have. And now every essential worker, non-essential, I was essential, I will be essential, I'm almost essential, I used to be essential. They're going to tell you that touching your head with your face just one time and all right.
That was amazing.
Little Jackie
Elon,
Mason
thank
for all of you.
So Elon, I've seen you do some Trump impersonation.
You know, you look at the numbers, Jacob, and you're asking me to do something that's very divisive. And a lot of your people, they love me, and then some of them don't. And to those people, I say, I don't care about you, okay? Because I only care about the people who love me. Okay. And you know, the Jews in general, they love me, the Jews, and I love them.
You know, Trump used to go on TV all the time and talk about how much he loved the Jews. And I was always like, no, shh, don't talk about us so much, because whoever you like, people tend to hate even more. And just don't even. But he was always on TV.
I love the Jews. You know, I know a lot of people. I know more people than there are people. Okay. How many people are there? What, like 7 billion? I know 19 trillion gazillion people. But the Jews are the best, especially the Jews of the Fifth Avenue Synagogue. You know, you look at all these LA Jews and they're fake Jews. They're totally fake, because look at them. They're fake Jews. But New York Jews.
I love doing Trump. That's another guy I love doing. And people always wonder, like, well, what's your politics? I don't talk politics. It is so divisive. To me, comedy is the antidote to all of the rhetoric and all the back and forth and the hatred that's going on between the left and the right. You know, that's why I'm really a centrist, and I'm really in the middle. And of course, there are certain things I lean to the right, like Israel. I'm like a crazy right winger. Don't mess with me in Israel. I am all the way to the right. And then there's some things that I'm to the left about, like women's rights and gay rights and all these other things. So I never understand people who are just on one side of any spectrum. And that's why in my comedy, it's just like, let's just make fun of everything and everybody. And I'll make fun of Bernie Sanders as I will make fun of Trump, even though they're on opposite sides. You ever see my Bernie Sanders as your Zadie bit?
No.
Here's two. I'm throwing in now a second. We're getting up to the buy 5, get 1 free point. Here we go. So I said that Bernie Sanders would make the worst Zadie. Okay? Because like imagine him, we just had Hanukkah. Imagine him around Hanukkah time. The billionaires have stolen all of your Hanukkah geld. The 1% has taken 99% of my money and has left me with nothing other than the ability to buy and make latkes for you, although I will bake the latkes because this country is way too oil dependent, and I will not bake and fry, will not fry the latkes in a frying pan using more of that oil that we are much too dependent on. I will bake them even though they will be tasteless. I don't care. I am more. Anyway, he's another guy who's got that Jackie Mason rhythm also. I love guys who have rhythms like it's a duzzy and he think it makes me nauseous. And then this is the guy who looks so looks so you don't even have to say words. It could be funny just going and Bernie Sanders and Jackie Mason you don't have to say words. It's amazing.
What about, I haven't seen you do a Joe Biden one. Come on.
I'm working on it, but it's very like, you know, hey, it's all right, man.
He's like a stoner from the 70s. Remember those guys that were just like,
Dude, it's going to be good.
it's all right. And then he falls asleep.
You know, Sleepy Joe. I mean, I said Sleepy Joe, and then you look at him, and in every single press conference, he's dozing off.
By the way, the ratings are huge. You think that my parents got big ratings? We're breaking 80, which could be what, 2 per set. We might be breaking 200 people at this point.
Easy. So Elon, it's so the impersonating. Like, how young were you when you started impersonating people, and when did you get the comfort that you were good at it? I mean, you had to do it in elementary school.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Mom has a point. Let's go to her on the speaker view. Mom, go ahead.
I want to read an article from your.
Oh no, reading articles in the middle of a Zoom. Mom, we don't have time to read art. Can you read a sentence from it?
This is from Harriet Levitt.
Okay, so I went to MTA, YU High School, and she was my drama teacher, and she actually inspired me and my friend Sammy Herskowitz to start the first ever, we called it Herska Gold Productions, where we did live readings of either, little short stories or little plays, and we did it in front of the whole school. Now this, you look about how the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. My father was the first in his city college to start a musical comedy society. And it's just so weird. I didn't do it because my father did it. That was like in the recesses, like in the back of my brain. I knew about it, but when the opportunity came up and me and Sammy just went, yeah, we'll put on plays and we'll do. And then it hit me. I'm like, oh my God, my dad did this too. And it's kind of weird when the genetics works in that way.
All right,
So-
but I want to answer Jacob's. When did you first start doing this? So this is what this teacher. She was actually the chairperson of English.
Yes, she was the chairperson of the English Lit. And Mom, you could read that. We'll allow the evidence to be read. However, just so you know, anyone that's tuning in right now, they just care about what Larry David is like, and he's getting to that question soon.
Okay, wait. So each day when he can, no. So this is your past, and this is what people want to know, which they won't read about. And by the way, Jacob Gold publicized the article in the Jewish Journal.
Thank you, Jake.
And you didn't even have to show it because we're all familiar with it.
And he's a Gold with no relation.
No relation. Thanks for being upfront about that. So Elon, talk about COVID. You must have like ton of new material.
Well, wait a minute. I just lost you guys. Are you here?
We're here.
Okay, you see me?
We see you. We hear you and we see you.
Oh, good, good.
We
good,
like
good.
hearing you, more important than seeing you, but we see you and we hear you.
Okay, good, because I just literally lost myself, so that's good. Something
Okay.
came.
People in LA, they lose themselves, but you're back.
Ah! Okay, so we were talking about
COVID.
COVID
Yep.
stuff. I have so much material about COVID. One of my favorite jokes, because I love jokes that sort of poke holes in things like racism and or anti-Semitism, or I love to find the funny in hate, because when you find the funny in hate, you get to expose the ignorance of bigotry. And if you're a bigot, if you hate Jews, you're an ignorant person. There's something wrong with you, and you also have just ignorance. So one of my favorite jokes that I've been doing lately is it me, or these last couple of years has everyone been either asymptomatic or anti-Semitic?
That's good.
And like being asymptomatic, you could be anti-Semitic and not even know you have it.
Whoa.
And I say, like Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson may not have known he had it. It took a little bit of alcohol intake, and then he was like, "Oh my God, I got it! But how did I get it? Oh, my father gave it to me. I was just with him, and he was spewing." And then I say, sometimes you have a mild case of it, like maybe they tweet something out like it's all about the Benjamins, and when I read that tweet, I'm like, you know what? You should get tested. I'm pretty sure you have it. And then this next part, which I just released on Instagram, and Stand With Us, which is an amazing organization that fights anti-Semitism, that fights for Israel advocacy on campuses and all over. They just posted it, and it already has like, I think, 20,000 views in just a day or two, where I talk about, then you have the super spreaders. The super spreaders are the ones who go to the rallies, who do,
This is great.
What's that?
This is great, Elon. Go.
Oh,
It's amazing.
thanks. Yeah, so the super
Brilliant.
spreaders, they're at the rallies going, the Jews will not replace us. And I like have to make fun of that, because it's so, I go, what kind of slogan is that? The Jews will not replace us. Replace you? We don't want to replace you. We just want to put braces on you. Like, replace you. We just want to manage your portfolio. If we replace you, how are we going to invoice you? And then that bit goes on and gives all the different examples of like, replace you. We just want to place you in a 30-year low interest fixed mortgage. Fees and rates may apply. We just want to heal you, teach you. My parents were teachers. Make you laugh, comedians. Represent you in the divorce when she replaces you. And then the bit ends by saying, don't they know we're not good at replacing stuff like tires or, refrigerators or appliances? That's why we always have to call them. We couldn't replace you without calling one of you to do it for us.
That's great.
So, but what I love about that is it takes these horrible alt-right anti-Semites, and again, I'm always making fun of both sides, because I make fun of left anti-Semitism, because my joke about the tweet was directed right at Ilhan Omar. What do you say when you hate someone? Are you with me?
When you hate someone?
Yeah. What do you say when you like? Yamach Shemo. That's what you
Yamach
say.
Shema, right.
Yeah, she is a real hater. So she's the one that I talk about when I talk about the tweet, and she's far left anti-Semitism, and then on the far right, the alt-rights, and coming up with this slogan like the Jews will not replace us. I hear that, and my first thought is anger. Like, how dare you, have a rally and be so vocal and in broad daylight about, or whatever, it was nighttime, but just on TV without being embarrassed or ashamed. They're proud of their Jew hatred. So I get really angry, and then out of anger comes good comedy. And out of anger, I say, how do I turn this around where I put it back in their face? Mel Brooks once said, he does Nazi stuff, and I never do any like Holocaust jokes or any of that. But he said, my only weapon against these Nazis, against Hitler, Yamach Shemo, is humor. And I feel that way too. Like, my weapon to get back at these anti-Semites is just by ridicule and mocking them.
Thanks for sharing that. That's great. I appreciate that. So Elon, during COVID, before we get to Curb,
What's COVID?
COVID is this thing, and it doesn't apply in LA, I heard.
No, we don't have, no, it doesn't apply in Florida. It applies here and it applies in New York.
Right. Only in the blue
Florida's a
state.
whole other story.
So you started something on Instagram called the Bachur.
It's actually called by the way, you're doing a great interview and you are an amazing interviewer, but you just had your first faux pas, and do your research better. It's called the Bachur.
Okay, but I thought it's okay. Go ahead.
No, see, by the way, Jacob does not like to get called out on his mistakes. You were just nailing this interview, and then you get one thing wrong. It's the Bachur, and it's sweeping the Jewish world.
So talk about the Bachur.
And by the way, thanks for watching it. Apparently you don't, because you would have known it's called the Bachur.
So talk about it.
Well, the Bachur is something that I'm really proud of, and it's sort of outside of show business. See, I live in two worlds. I live in showbiz and in shulbiz. Like, this is shulbiz, but I love it. I love both worlds. And when you get to combine the two, and like, for example, when I do a stand-up show, when I went to your shul and did a fun, stand-up show for you, that's combining shulbiz and showbiz, because you're doing a show, but it's at a shul, but it's still shul business. And when I categorize both of them, I mean it in the sense that one is completely, a Hollywood, it's doing a TV series or a special or a late night show. And one is anything that is in the Jewish world. And for me, again, when you combine the two, that's the best. Like, my stand-up special is called Elon Gold, Chosen and Taken, where I identify as Jewish and talk about it and really, get into what it's like to be Jewish and fighting anti-Semitism and all that stuff. But then the real shul business is when I just go very deeply Jewish and do obscure references and talk about Sukkot and Pesach and, stuff that I couldn't do anywhere. So to me, the Bachur is more in my shul business. It has nothing to do with show business. It's nothing to do with anything. And during the pandemic, I was doing a show called My Funny Quarantine. And every day I would go on Instagram Live and interview a friend of mine who was a comedian, from Jim Gaffigan to Howie Mandel. And I would do jokes, and I couldn't go anywhere. So I'm like, I'll bring the audience to me. And my friend Jeremy Gerlich, who wrote The Hangover, wrote The Breakup, big screenwriter, he said to me, I love what you're doing on Instagram. This show, My Funny Quarantine, we tune in every day. And it was also, I always like to have Jewish themes. So it was on every day at 6:13, and it was 18 minutes long. So I made it sort of have those Jewish themes to the show. And he said, as good as this show is, you know what you really need to do? An online dating show where you bring on different, young men and women and try to connect them. And, because all the apps and everything, it works, but there's nothing like, putting people on your live and exposing them to your audience of so many thousands of other Jews around the world. And we have people from Toronto to Miami to Israel to London tuning in. And I said, oh, like a dating online, like The Bachelor. Oh, but I'll call it the Bachur, and we'll I'll do it on Saturday nights. And I just started doing it on a lark. And literally last night we had 500 watching on the live, which also could mean 1,000 or more, because like 4 or 5 people watch on one phone. And it's just sort of taken off. But again, the reason I, talked about that whole shulbiz, showbiz, that's not show business. That's shulbiz, and only Jews watch it. And it's for Jews, and it's about Jews. And I love doing that stuff. But, I love going back and forth into both of those worlds.
So you're not actually doing matchmaking. It's the fun of it, right?
Well, I mean, we tried. Apparently, there were 2 or 3 couples who met and got married because of the show. While we try to matchmake, sometimes we just put someone on, like we put on this young woman, and some guy saw her, reached out to her. They started texting and DMing, and then they got together, and then they got engaged, and now they're married. And then there's another couple, same thing, that saw each other on the show. And then, so I'm trying to match make, but if you watch the show, it's usually, we call it a shidduch show because of the double entendre of that, because it's usually a shidduch show, if you know what I mean. Because we try to get people on and we try to match them up, but it's very difficult to. But what we're really doing is saying, come on, talk about yourself, talk about what you're looking for in a Bachur or a Bachurette, and just for you, we will do a version called the Bachurette.
Okay. So talk about Larry David and Curb Your Enthusiasm. So how long you've known Larry for a while, or he's
that's a 2-hour story, but I'll give you the short version of it. I met Larry a couple of times over my career, but not in any meaningful way or memorable way for him. For me, every time you're with LD, it's memorable. For him, it's just who's this, putz. But every time I met him, we always had a fun rapport. And then one time, I just woke up on my birthday and I said to my wife, Sasha, I said, I thought of him and I thought of one of his bits. And I went, I love Larry so much. You know what? For my birthday, I'm going to go and say hi to Larry. That's going to be my little birthday gift to me. You ever see Wall Street, the movie?
Yes.
It's literally the reverse Bud Fox. Bud Fox went to Gordon Gekko on Gordon Gekko's birthday to give him a present. I went to my Gordon Gekko, who's Larry David, the guy, my Gadol Hador, which I explained to him at lunch that he's the Gadol Hador. And I went to him on my birthday for my birthday gift to me. And as it turns out, he was very receptive. I went back a year later. They were in New York. I waited another 2 years and then went in again, and he remembered, and we really hit it off, and he realized what I can contribute to the show. And as he said to me, he goes, I know what you could do, and I know what you can't do. And I'm like, what can't I do? He goes, there's things you can't do. There's things and he's always joking around. He's always very pleasant. Next thing you know, he puts me in a scene in season 10, and I was like just so floored by the fact that it worked, like just sort of bombarding his office and saying, I got to do this show before you stop doing it, because it's such a part of the history of comedy, and it's probably the apex. It's probably the best and biggest show that ever was on television, comedy wise. And I just want a small part of it. And then he gives me this great scene and we nail it. And this is what a menschie is. He called me up and said, I'm so sorry, but we have to cut the scene for time. And we were both really funny in it. I'm upset. But he goes, I'll find something else for you next season. And I said, how likely is another season? This is 2 years ago. And he goes, likely. And then next thing you know, he puts me in not one, but 2 episodes. And then we had such a good time doing those 2 episodes that they added a 3rd episode where they wrote me into another scene. And just to be a part of that show, like I never thought I would. It was actually my youngest son, Brandon, who got addicted to that show about, I don't know, 5-6 years ago when he was like 15, 16. And he said, Daddy, you should be on that show. It's the best show ever. You should get on it. And I just sort of looked at him and I went, yeah, okay, sure. Like it's that easy to just get on a show like the biggest comedy ever. But I in the back of my head, I said, maybe one day, I will get on, because you never know. And you got to dream big, folks. If I could impart any sort of wisdom on the kids that are watching, dream big, because sometimes dreams become reality, and the bigger you dream, the better the reality. Am I right, folks?
Definitely. So is there one or a couple of comedians that inspired you most?
Absolutely. There was, I would say Billy Crystal is the one that when I watched him on Saturday Night Live and I watched his stand-up, I was like, that's what I want to do. I knew maybe I'll never be as good as Billy Crystal, and I'm not, but I knew I can do things that he does. I knew that I could do impressions and voices and dialects. I knew that I could write jokes and tell jokes. I knew that I could do sketches. I knew that I could do stand-up. And, again, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be the best. Oh, that's what I wanted to say at the beginning. I realized I had this revelation recently that nobody is everybody's favorite comedian. No one, not one. You think of the biggest guys, Seinfeld, Chris Rock, they're still not everybody's favorite comedian. So people have different comedians who are their favorite. If I have just a few people that say, "Oh, you're my favorite comedian," and I've heard that, before, and I'm like, "Oh my God, that's it." If you could just make as many people as possible your favorite comedian, then that's all you need. And I've been fortunate enough to, over, oh my God, how many years and decades, to finally build a following and a fan base where there actually is a small group of people that say, you're my favorite comedian. So for me, my favorite was Billy Crystal. But I also admired, Dave Letterman and Eddie Murphy, and Steve Martin was a big influence, Martin Short. To me, anyone who is really just versatile and like Robin Williams was another one that you just watch him and just go, okay, I'll never be able to do that. I'll never be that good, but I still love the kind of stuff he's doing where he just sprinkles impressions and he has these great bits and observations, and that's what I want to do. I'm just doing the worst version of them.
I doubt it. You actually have a lot of fans in our show, but it's good to be humble.
That's so nice. I try.
Tell us about so
It's all
Seinfeld.
false humility. I really think I'm better than all of them.
Tell us about Seinfeld. That wasn't. Was he a big inspiration or not as much?
Seinfeld to me was a great comedian who was a masterful wordsmith and had incredible observations on mundane, minute, minuscule, day-to-day, minutia. And for me, when I would watch Seinfeld, I'd be like, wow, he's just masterful at what he does. But he didn't speak to me, in the kishkas, the way some comedians, like, just for example, that he never even talks about being Jewish in his act is so weird to me. That, he doesn't go deep, he doesn't get too personal, but that's his thing, and he's the best at that. I like comedians who expose more of their soul, who, talk about their heritage and their lineage and what they go through, on a daily basis. And the reason that so much of my act is Jewish is because so much of my life is Jewish, because I keep Shabbos and I keep kosher. So when you're in shul and you have a funny thought, because of something that you're seeing or happened in shul, you don't write it down because it's Shabbos, but you remember it, and then you write it down after Shabbos, and then you do it and you share it. Jerry would never say, "Hey, I was in shul the other day," and because first of all, I don't think he attends shul too much, but
He was in our
no
show.
judgment. What?
He was in our show once, but go ahead.
Oh, good, and no judgment, but the fact that he doesn't talk about what he is, I mean, my goodness, Jerry Seinfeld is the most Jewish person on television, just like he's so Jewish, but he never talks about it. And in Seinfeld, I think it was mentioned in one or two episodes, the dentist hilarious moment, and there was another reference to him being Jewish. So yeah, when you say, were you a fan of his? Of course I was. You can't not be a fan of one of the greatest comedians that ever lived. I admired him greatly, but he didn't speak to me of like, that's what I want to do. I want to be that guy. But he's one of the best ever.
So Elon,
He's also doing very well. I don't know if you heard.
yeah, thank God. So Elon, so you would say that there's sort of the Jewish comedy, and then there's sort of the showbiz, right?
There's showbiz and shulbiz, but I think they blend more often than not. I literally had this thought this morning about the difference between Seinfeld, the show, and Curb, the show. Seinfeld, the show, is Jewish humor. There is, George Costanza Maituchas. He's a Jewish guy, and he's based on Larry David. And all four of them were just Jewish characters who spoke tonally in a very Jewish way. And the situations that they came up with and how they handled it, that's Jewish humor. And then I realized, but the difference between like Seinfeld and Curb is also almost all Jews. You talk about Larry, Jeff Garlin, Richard Lewis. They're all like Susie Essman, and they're mostly Jewish cast. But the difference is it's not only tonally Jewish, but Larry actually goes deep. And Larry will have references of, you know, from the shofar bit he did this season to, you know, buying tickets to high holidays, to he does a lot, you know, wearing a kippah and going to the Palestinian restaurant. There are so many episodes where he talks about being Jewish, where he, you know, goes to the point of like obscure references that sometimes I'm watching going, why is he doing this just for us? Like nobody else knows this. Whereas Seinfeld maybe mentioned it, you know, he did mention it once or twice. So Curb is even a more Jewish show than Seinfeld. Wouldn't you agree?
Elon, could I interrupt a minute?
Of course, Mom.
Yes. Didn't Larry David tell you to be a Jewy? He emphasized being authentically Jewish.
He did. He said as much verbiage, whether it's Yiddish, Hebrew, any Jewishisms, just throw it all out there. And there was so much that he didn't even make it, you know, that's on the cutting room floor. I remember one of my favorite moments in the office when he comes to visit me as head of Hulu. And we're talking about the script. And I said, Larry, the script, ugh, is it good? And then I said, and you know, our people, we use ugh in a positive way. Like you go out to a restaurant, like, ugh, that was delicious, right? And without missing a beat, Larry, and we're just riffing in a scene, Larry goes, oh yeah, ugh is bad. He goes, ugh is good, ich is bad. I'm like, yes, ich bad, ugh good. And we just kept going back and forth about ugh and ich and the difference between ugh and ich. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a hilarious moment. It's definitely going to make it in the show. And of course it didn't, because you could never do, you know, you could do as many bits as you want in the filming, but only 1 or 2 or 3 bits are going to make it in, because each scene has to move the story forward. It has to be a scene where things happen. It can't just be, here's a few great comedy bits, you know?
So Elon, talk about what, you know, clearly you make people laugh, you make people happy.
I do?
Yes. And clearly,
is anybody happy watching this?
Everybody, they're all raising their hands.
Okay, good.
But tell us about some of the, you know, what's most rewarding about what you do? Is it the creativity, coming up with the idea? Is it watching people enjoy it? Can you talk a little?
I would say it is a combination of the process and then the realization of like just one thought and one observation, and then sometimes it takes months or even years to get it right. So the process, like if I'm ever like cranky or not in a good mood, there's only really one thing besides like my children and their happy faces that will snap me out of being like in like not in a good mood, and that is writing comedy. And I'll come here to my office. By the way, this is my office where, as you could see, it represents everything I love behind me. I have pictures of family. I have the Torah. I have Chumashim behind me. I have Larry David. You know, so everything that I love is represented in this office. Cigars, wine. So I come here in the office and I just start pacing and writing. See, I even have it right here on my desk. All these index cards. I write on index cards. So I don't know if you could see this, but
yes,
all of this is just like, these are set lists and all the different writing. So when I write, just the process alone puts me in a good mood, because you're writing comedy and comedy is funny. So it makes me laugh, even though I'm coming up with it. I'm still enjoying it and laughing, and then going, I can't wait till people see this. And then when it, you know, finally comes to fruition and you're on stage and people are hysterical, that's obviously the best feeling. But the whole way through, it's good. It's good. I always say to myself, because life, and my goodness, if we haven't seen the last couple of years, it can be so, what's a good word?
Challenging?
Not just challenging. I don't want to say depressing, because I am generally a happy person, and I thank God I'm not clinically depressed, and I almost rarely get depressed. But there are so many depressing moments in someone's life, and whether it's just from the news or personal or relationship or family or death and disease, and we're living in a pandemic, there is so much negativity out there that I always say to myself, how do people do it? How do people get through all of the negativity, because I know how I get through it, and it's living a life of comedy and also Torah and Judaism. Like connecting to God keeps me through, gets me through, just knowing that even though so much of life has no permanence, there's always God, and that is permanent, and that gets me through. But to think about people who just have jobs, like, if you're an accountant, that's great. It's a great job. I am not ripping on accountants, but you're not sitting there laughing all day like I am. So I always wonder, like, I'm having fun, and it's not all fun, by the way, but when I'm working and when it's working and I'm enjoying this process of writing jokes and I'm making myself laugh, I very often stop and go, how does everyone else get through their days? Because I'm just like laughing and having fun.
Thanks for sharing that. That's very meaningful. So talk about these index cards. So you'll come to your office.
Come to my office. I will write, and they're colored, but they're not color coded. I will write, and by the way, these are all set lists. People always say, how do you remember your act? You're up there for an hour. These are all different set lists. So I will bullet point each bit has a word. You know what I mean? Like, for example, I'll give you a perfect example. I have a bit called, I just wrote down here, seventh, right? So now I know obviously what seventh is. I'll share that bit with you. And every time you see a comedian, everyone has set lists, by the way. Almost every comedian has it either on the floor or on the stool. And when we go lean in for a drink, in my special, I actually wrote in silver Sharpie on the black stool my entire set list, because I didn't even want a card. I didn't want anyone to see a card. So I wrote it on that, and nobody saw that. So it's like a cheat sheet. But it really, you still know your act, you still know where you're going, and you know the bits. But if you ever sort of like just either get lost, which happens every now and then, or you just look at it for like, okay, here's where I am in the set, and I've done this and I've done that, and I have this to go. So seventh, perfect example. Seventh is a bit, and all I have is the number 7 and th, and that makes me go into the bit of. Do you remember, I say you remember, baby Archie, that Meghan and Harry had this baby Archie?
Yes.
Yeah. So by the way, his full name is Archibald Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. But his Hebrew name is Shmuley. Anyway, I say that this baby Archie, he's going to grow up and find out what his parents did, that they renounced the throne, and he's going to just freak. He's going to be, I'm sorry, you abdicated what? The throne. Wait. Let me get this straight. Your grandmother, my great-grandmother, is the who? The queen, the woman on all the money, and you disowned her. So wait. So my life now, I was 7th in line to be king, and now what? I'll be 7th in line at a Burger King. Is that what my future looks like? And then I go into this whole bit about how impressive it is that if he somehow gets it back, and maybe he disowns his own parents and say, no, I want to be back in the royal family, that he is actually 7th in line to be king. And I said, that is a very impressive thing, to be 7th in line to be a king. And then I realized, unless, of course, when he grows up, he marries a Jewish woman who will just be like, 7th, that's it? You're 7th? Come on, you couldn't have been 3rd, giving us a shot at this? My Uber driver was 5th, okay? My Uber, on the way here, he was like, yeah, I'm just driving Uber in case my number doesn't get called up. But you're 7th in line. Do you know who the 7th man on the moon was? Yeah, neither does anybody, okay? You know why? He was 7th, all right? You know who the 7th dwarf was? Dopey, because you got to be an idiot to be 7th. Guess what happens if you place 7th at the Kentucky Derby? They shoot your horse. Yeah. Do you know what God did on the 7th day? Nothing, because God knows after 6, nobody cares. Hey, and then the last line is, and I'll take a wild guess of what the 7th planet is. Uranus. Yeah, not quite your highness, is it?
That's good.
So all I have to do is write 7th, and it's in a
It all comes here.
And then you obviously, you can't write down the bit. You got to memorize the bit, but you can bullet point what the bit's name is and all that stuff.
Elon, could you bullet point Rodney Dangerfield if he were Orthodox?
So Rodney is also one of my favorite, impressions, and I was actually riffing with friends on if Rodney Dangerfield was more of an observant comedian like I am, what his act would be like. It would be so different. So this is I'll just do a couple. This is religious Rodney. Okay, here we go. I tell you, it ain't easy being me, folks. We had nothing growing up, we had nothing. I tell you, in my shul, they couldn't afford a mechitza. The men, we would just close our right eye. Oh, yeah, you got married under the chuppah in my shul, you stepped on a styrofoam cup, Oh, I'll tell you, the holidays were tough, too. I'll tell you, the holidays were rough. Yeah, I remember one year the bank foreclosed on our sukkah. Oh, yeah. We didn't even have a strach over our heads. You kidding me? My parents couldn't afford a lulav and etrog. They handed me a tennis ball and a stick and said, here, shake that, Oh, we put the poor in Purim, I tell you. I remember one year on Hanukkah, I opened up my gift on the 6th night. It was 2 more candles, Anyways, that's the whole thing. You could look that up. Follow me on Instagram. All these bits, a lot of them are on Instagram. You could see them. But yeah, that was another bit, and that's for shul biz, because I could never go on a late night show and do jokes about lulavs or any of that. So again, I have 2 acts, and I love doing both of them. But the best is when you get to combine them, when you get to do, just an observation or a comedy bit that really speaks to Jews on a very personal level, and it's experiential for them. Like, oh yeah, we've experienced that, or oh, we know about that. But then also a non-Jewish audience can get it also. And I remember seeing, I went to see Dave Chappelle, who's an old friend, at Radio City Music Hall, and Jon Stewart was one of his special guests. And Jon Stewart was doing bits about Seder plates to a mostly black audience. And I'm watching, the audience is cracking up. Jon Stewart's doing a Seder plate joke. And I remember just thinking, I will never be afraid to be that sort of, have that much of an obscure reference. I would always say, oh, Seder plate, that's going to my Jewish act. But sometimes when you just say something and you give it a little explanation, people know, or people have Jewish friends, or they've been to Seders. So it really opened my eyes to never be afraid to be too Jewish. By the way, you had a Chappelle question I heard through the grapevine, and we're coming up on an hour, and we're going to start boring people. And I'm also looking at a percentage of my laptop, which is not plugged in, and we're at high percent. We're at 18%, so we better get these.
Well, we're inviting the rabbi back because I know he has a question. Yuri Babbage is coming back. I wanted to ask you one last question before the rabbi, but
Sure.
so you're clearly close to Modi.
We are best friends.
So talk about, you really have good relations with other people in your industry, and it's very unique. You're not competitive. You've helped us with other comedians. You give us good advice.
I love getting other comedians gigs and work, and it is a camaraderie and it's a bond, a brotherhood of, we are a band of brothers, and we're in trenches, that are not quite war trenches, but it's a different kind of, when we go out and we call them hell gigs, or all of these situations where comedy is just not conducive, it's not conducive to comedy, and yet we trudge through and we get it done. And these are like our war stories. So we share war stories, and we're in the trenches often together doing gigs. But yeah, I love, if I'm not available or I'm out of budget, because I'm very expensive, getting other comedians gigs and recommending other comedians. But make no mistake about it, we're all competitive. It's not, it's not the kind of competition where, like, for example, when I see something go viral that Modi puts out, and he has all these amazing, brilliant viral videos, there's actually a part of me that's like proud. That's like, oh, that's my best friend Modi, and he just put out this hilarious bit, and I'm laughing and I'm enjoying it, and good for him. And then my bit, will go viral next week that I put out. So it is that. But also there's a competition of like, hey, he put out a viral video, I better put out a viral. So we're always trying to, it's not a one-upmanship, because there's no competition. I'm the best. That was a joke. but it is competitive, because comedy, and like everything else, is competitive. But the truth is, comedy, like everything else, you're really only competing with yourself. There's nothing and no one else that you're competing with.
Well, we've taken away Modi's new line at Fifth Avenue. He said he loves what we haven't done to the building. So he's
I
gonna come up
like
with a
that.
new line.
He told me that as the opening jokes, his opening joke. I love what you haven't done to the place. I mean, and that's Modi. Modi has this unbelievable eye where he just spots something and he just locks and loads. You know, he spots it, has the observation, puts it into few words, and spits it out. And he does that almost better than anybody. I'm more of like I put more preparation. I mean, things come out every now and then that
You were
are
good
off.
on the DNA. The DNA. You're
Yeah,
opening.
yeah, yeah. Every now and then there's something off the cuff, but he is a guy who just spots it, thinks, spits it out. And it's like, you should have Shabbos dinner with him, because it's just constant riffing, and he'll just notice something and then just do a bit on it, or a joke on it. He really is a hysterical guy.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Yes, thank you, Jacob.
By the way,
Elon-
Jacob, near flawless interview, just one faux pas. It was the Bachur, but let's not harp on that.
No, but you need to start the Bacharette. I need to inspire you, because women are as important as men, and you shouldn't.
Are
favor
you
the men.
kidding? As important,
Why'd you
way
pick
more
the Bachar?
important.
It should
Oh
be the
my God!
Bacharette.
Good luck to you, Jacob. That was your second faux pas of the evening. Wait
One
till
more
you
to
get
go.
off this Zoom and your wife said, "Oh, really? Almost as important." Honey,
Rabbi,
if you're watching, you're so much more important than all of us. And Mom, you're way more important than Dad. And
I knew that.
Rebbitzin, you're much more important than the rabbi. What else? Anyone else that we're missing?
Your wife,
I said, honey.
your wife. Elon, thank you so much for such a entertaining and interesting evening.
I tried.
Yeah, Sid and Lid, thank you so much for
It's
your
not
help.
easy to do this through the Zoom. You know,
Oh,
jokes
pleasure.
don't, by the way, jokes don't necessarily translate, Rabbi, through, Zoom like this. And there's nothing like the energy of a live audience, and even the chemistry that's
Hear
in
the
the
laughter.
Yeah, and just hearing the laughter, like I'm literally doing jokes to silence, but I know where the laughs are, so I don't mind not hearing them. But you have to understand, when this pandemic hit, I spent over a year in this office. I would go up there and with a mic and perform for sometimes 200, sometimes 2,000, sometimes Australia, all over the world. I was doing these Zoom shows, and at first I couldn't stand it, because to not hear the laughs, whatever. Then I started figuring out how to do it. And I would say, let's just unmute even like 8, 9, 10 people. Let's have a minion of laughs so that I could hear laughs at least, And then once I got used to the process, I actually enjoyed it. I still miss, and you can't even compare live audiences to Zoom audience. But thank you for, doing this. And I'm glad we could make a few people laugh, even though I heard 0 laughs all night.
So Elon, I just had one question for you. Obviously, as for a performer, the goal is to make it appear natural and effortless, as if you're coming up with the material on the spot. But we all know that there's a lot of prep and practice behind the scenes. And sometimes in life, I don't think people always understand how much time is invested to create a good product. So I'm just curious, whether it be a clip for Curb or your own stand-up, how much time and practice and revisions goes into a 5-minute clip that's successful.
Oh, it is a trick question. Was the rabbi wants to know if the time he puts in his sermon, if he'd be better telling a joke, Elon. So you have to really answer this right.
Well, I'll answer it right, and then we'll wrap up the Zoom with one of my favorite bits, which is about rabbi speeches. The truth is, like, if you after this, if you really want to laugh, Google Elon Gold on James Corden, and that to me was one of my favorite TV sets, and it's 6 minutes long. But I would say the 2 bits that I was doing, that I did on there, I was doing for one of them for 3-4 years, and then finally perfected it, and one for, I don't know, 4 to 6 months. And then I spent my summer in New York going from club to club, the Comedy Cellar to Stand Up New York to the Comic Strip, every night, 2, 3, 4 sets a night, and perfecting just this 6 minutes. And again, that's months and sometimes years. So when you guys see like an hour special, my hour special was, 10 years in the making. My next hour special, which I hope to film this year. Oh, I'm getting a low battery sign. Okay, we're good for one more bit. My next special.
That's a good one. I haven't seen the low battery thing with a comedian. I like that.
My next special is, I'm going to film it hopefully in about 6-7 months, and it should come out this year, God willing. That's been 5-6 years in the making, where I'm working on this 1 hour of material, and each 5 minutes is, again, months, and sometimes years. So, and then, it's so funny because you hear people like Seinfeld go, oh, that bit took me 10 years. And you're like, really, Jerry? It's 3 minutes long. What's wrong with you? What are you doing all day? But the truth is, it's not like we work at it all day and all night on this 1 3-minute piece. But sometimes you just add one line here 5 months in, and then you take away something that isn't as strong and replace it with something else. So it's always a work in progress until it's out there, until you put it on TV, until you put it into like a late night set or a special. There are bits that I'm constantly adding and editing. And until you put it out there, you're always working on it. So we'll end with my favorite bit. Hopefully my computer won't get cut off. I knew we were good for an hour. I didn't know we were doing 1 hour and 10 here.
But we had a special introduction.
So this is that's right. We had a 40-minute intro. So this is my favorite, one of my favorite bits about how I love watching rabbis give their sermons. But they learned how to give the perfect sermon from journalists. And journalists learned that in order to make a story compelling, you have to answer something called the 6 W's, which is who, what, when, where, why, and how, which has a W at the end, so it counts. And this is a real thing. I didn't make this up. And this is how journalists write their stories. And then rabbis picked that up, and they realized, ooh, my speech is only good if I also answer the 6 W's. And if you look very carefully, you can actually see the rabbi counting to make sure he doesn't miss even one of the W. So I'll leave you with, here is my impression of every rabbi's speech. Here we go. There's a saying in Judaism, which is what? Do unto others as you would do unto yourself. Now, where do we see this and who said it? We see it in the Torah, and it was said by God. Why? Why did he say it? Why? He said it so that we should institute it into our daily lives. But how? How do we institute it? How? By being kind to our fellow man. And when? Always, always, always be kind to your fellow man. Good Shabbos.
That's great.
Thank you, Elon. Now we have a sermon for this coming week. Thank you.
Elon, we look
Thank
forward
you,
to
Rabbi.
having you.
Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Mom
Rabbi
and Dad.
Babbage starts his sermon with a joke every single Shabbos. And
That's great. And that's why he's an amazing rabbi and an incredible
is.
speaker. And can I tell you this? That's actually, I believe it's in the Talmud that when you're learning Torah, they say that you should almost always open with a joke because it gets people to pay attention. And
Right.
a joke can just turn your mind on in a way that's just like, oh, I'm going to listen to this now. And then you talk about the real stuff.
Right.
Elon, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you in the new building and performing in our new
Amen.
ballroom. And sit
They
in
say
Lynn
next year in Jerusalem. I agree with that. But let's, for now, next year in person. Let's throw these things out.
Amen. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening. See you guys soon. Good night, Sid and
Thank
Lynn.
you.
Good night, Rabbi.
Thank you, Elon. Thank you.
Thank
Elon.
you.
Thank
Bye, guys.
We went to
Bye.
love you.
Love you.